Hey everybody, it's Bruno and Bruno on MB, where it can't all be serious. You know what? Hide all the refreshments, all the snacks, because Bruno and Bruno are in the house. Bruno, I love you. How are you doing?
Too, man. Great.
So Bruno, I'm sure you follow, I know you follow some of the stuff I do. I don't know if there's too many episodes where I don't quote, as Bruno Picone would say, and many people think that's just my alter ego. You are actually the Bruno Picone. So right off the bat, our thumbnail says project management leadership. Our viewers, just so that you know, hang tight because we talk a little technical, but you got to stay tuned because there's Yogi Bear-isms, and they're kind of all over the place, but there's Bruno Picone-isms that I quote you all the time, and we're going to cover some of the best ones. So, Bruno, you ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Okay, so our thumbnail, take the mystery out. Let's attack this right away. It says project management / leadership.
Mm-hmm.
What are you talking about?
Well, first of all, let me begin by saying that, there's the Project Management Institute that teaches people all the aspects of project management. And, I liken it to very much like I could teach you, I could take some paint and I could take a canvas and try to teach you to be an artist. But the truth of the matter is, and this is the way I look at the PMI program, is I can show you how to paint, but I can give you a canvas and I can give you paint, but I know you're not going to paint the Mona Lisa. So this is sort of like, what other things do you need to even try to paint the Mona Lisa? And so when I look at project management, project leadership, I look at the aspects from you as the leader. What is it going to take for you to be successful? And the very first thing I'm going to talk about is commitment, team commitment. And one of the things I used to always tell the team, I'm going to work my ass off on this project, but I'm going to be the laziest guy on the team because I expect you guys to work harder. And what does that really mean? Is what I'm doing is I'm looking at these team members to be my eyes and my ears to see the things that I can't possibly see, and for them to get back to me. And I used to have a saying, intellectual honesty. If you can come back to me and take out all emotions and strictly speak from an honest and unemotional viewpoint, then we have to have a good discussion. And a lot of times, my projects I found I got really successful was because somebody came to me and said, hey, Bruno, do you know this is happening? And I'd go, no, it's news to me. And they would explain it, and I knew they had no emotions. They were strictly talking from an intellectual honesty point of view. And that kind of commitment is what you need from your team members. You need to listen to them, and they need to get back to you with their honesty of what's going on.
Bruno, this is what I want to talk about. Yeah, I don't want you to give the details of the company. I don't think that's fair.
No.
You spoke. I'm hoping you're going to tell this story about commitment. Again, I talk about Yogi Bear-isms, and unfortunately, Yogi Bear, we agree to this. You kind of made him to be out a bit of a cartoon. One of the greatest, if not the greatest, Yankee of all time.
Yep, I
10
agree.
world championships, 10 world champions with the Yankees, one with the Mets. We forget about the Mets one with Gil Hodges. Okay. And all they kind of remember is these goofy sayings. Your sayings aren't goofy, but sometimes people don't translate it with a little bit of salt. So I say, yeah, you're committed, but are you Bruno Picone committed? And I'm not joking, right? It sounds funny.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a situation where you overtook a major ERP project and you want to see if the stakeholders, the major guys, were actually serious. Do you mind telling that story without details?
Yeah. So anyways, the company I was working for, they had put in an ERP and it had not been working very well. Their sales basically the sales part of the ERP didn't work at all. They couldn't invoice customers and so forth. And so I was asked to take it over. And I needed to know for sure that the sponsors, the people who were going to be backing me, were really committed. So I said to them, I'm going to take the entire team of the people that are going to be working on this project to Banff to spend a week at what's the name of it's a fancy hotel in Banff, not the old one, but the
Rimrock.
the new Rimrock. That's it. And
I wasn't invited, by the way, but that's okay.
No. Wow. And so I said, we're going to go for a week to the Rimrock, which is a very nice hotel, like, nice rooms, everything else. And the reason I did that was because if they said to me, well, we don't know why we have to go all the way up to Banff to do this. And my attitude was, if you're really committed, you're not going to worry about the little details. You're going to give me the leeway to do what I think is best. And I knew that if we went there, that I would have the full attention of everybody there, rather than if they were back in Calgary, they got a hockey game at 5:30, they got to leave. They got to, the wife is phoning, there's the sink is plugged. No, there I had their attention. And truly, and when the sponsors reluctantly said yes, then I knew I had them. And then what I made them all do is I made the sponsors come up for a dinner to sit with us all and talk and just BS, nothing really technical. And I wanted to see if they would show up, and they all showed up. And that really told everybody that these people were committed to seeing this successful.
So Bruno, we're talking about motivation. Now you got commitment. They appoint you as the leader. How in the world do you motivate either stakeholders or the people that need to kind of do the work for you?
Well, one of the things that I have found that I find very useful is TV shows and movies to help me get the sense of what we need to do to motivate people. So when I start a project, the first thing I tell myself, because I have to be motivated myself, I'm not motivated, nobody's going to be motivated, is I always think of Apollo 13 when Ed Harris, who's the program director for the space flight to the moon, the boys are stuck in the middle of nowhere. Their airship or spaceship is not working properly, and they have to bring them home. And he turns to his team and he says, I haven't lost one yet on my watch, and I'm not going to lose one now. And so I always would take a project from that aspect. I haven't lost any yet. I've always been successful. We're not starting now. And so, to me, that was always my biggest motivator, is just keep thinking. You cannot fail. And, one of the things about motivation, and one of the things I do want to talk about, was one time I was asked to take over a project. Well, I really wasn't asked to take over initially. I was asked to go evaluate it. And I went to the guy who was leading it. The project wasn't going very well. And we sat down and we had a talk. And I said to him, finally, what do you think your chances of succeeding are? And he said, about 70%. And he proceeded to give me some reasons why there was a 30% chance of failure. Immediately after that, I went to my boss and I said, we got to fire that person. I said, why? They only believe 70% chance that they're going to succeed. If they're not 100% sure they're going to succeed, what hope have we got? And so to me, when you're doing a project, you do not even know the word failure. You have to be motivated to go forward. And, recently I've become a big fan of Winston Churchill. And I was watching a movie about him. And, when everybody in England was ready to give in, now, he was going to stand up to the Germans once and for all. He was going to fight back. And to me, that's what's so important about being a project leader, is you only know success. You never think of failure.
So Bruno, I'm going to, I always smile because it brings back memories of when I guess we're in the trenches, and a lot of people think, like you did work with Bruno. We met on a cold call, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Years ago. And you thought it was another Bruno, I think, and you weren't returning my call. And then a mutual friend said, no, it's not the same guy. And people think that we knew each other for years and years and years. We didn't know. And we built a relationship through business. And then honestly, I would be really lying if I didn't say you were one of my. I other than my mom and dad, I call them three mentors, real mentors, and you're in that top three of all the people I've met. So you've left you continue to give me a motivating way of looking at things. And one of the things I'm going to give the saying, and I want you to maybe explain what it is. And because I remember all your stories. Where's the rocket? You were waiting for the rocket to show up. Do you remember that story?
Oh, yeah. So one time I was running, I was more of a program manager than a project manager. And I had a project guy who was running this project, and it was going nowhere fast. He had been at it for a while, and I just, I just could not understand what the problem was. So I asked them to draw out on the whiteboard the process, like what were the physical things that were happening. And it was a simple system too. A truck showed up at a tank, got filled up with product, and left. And they just had to put in a system that recorded that the guy showed up, took the product, and left. And so they were struggling to get this system to work. So I took one look at his drawing, and I said to him, I don't see a rocket. Where in the F is the rocket that's making this so hard? We don't need a rocket scientist. We just need a simple thing. And he looked at me stunned, because I think he was trying, I don't know what he was trying to build, but he was trying to take this project to the moon. And all he had to do was fill a friggin' tank with some product.
And I remember the story. I was not there, obviously, because you spoke to me, and I was challenged with certain things. He goes, Bruno, it reminds me of the rocket meeting. And there was like a whole bunch of people that were invited to the stakeholders, and the divided by this. It was a bit of a boondoggle to go somewhere. And you're looking around, and you said something like, when's the rocket going to show?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's another thing about project management or project leadership is, when you're doing a project, try not to expand the scope. Look at it for what it's really worth. Another movie that I love that helps me is Philadelphia with Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington, when he says to him, explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old. And when I'm working with people, if they can't explain something to me like I'm a 5-year-old, then I go, you don't know what you're talking about. Because again, I don't think anything is that difficult in life. Everything, when you really get down to, actually, I think this is one of your sayings, is work really hard to make it simple. Because once you've made it simple, you're not going to have to work hard anymore.
Yeah, and the viewers out there, and Bruno, il Don, Bruno di Don, don't read into me smiling when you're talking. I'm not ridiculous. It just brings me back to a time where I was like, what am I doing wrong? And you would simplify and say, you know what, did the rocket show up? Yeah. I'm stuck on that. And now I use that all the time. It's like, why am I even in this meeting? Not that I'm smarter. It was like, you guys are 10 times smarter than I am, especially, I guess, younger professionals, and think that you need to meet on every conflicting. I'm like, there's no rocket. It's never going to show up, right? So I kind of smile, because it brings me back to times of turmoil in my life. And I'm like, why am I going to millions of meetings? What brings me to another one. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I want you to slow down on this one. Ready? Because you're going to laugh.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
You can do it, but don't do it.
Yeah.
How do we even tell that one?
Well, so one time I was asked to run this project. It was early days of, business warehouses. Now, everybody's doing decision support and AI and all this. But back then it was, I'm talking 20 years ago, it was new stuff. People hadn't really gotten control of it. And I needed to find somebody who could do this. And I ran into a guy who was working, who went to a conference. And this is something else that was one of my, I'm going to digress for a second. One of the things I used to tell my staff, if you go to a conference and you don't come back and implement, don't talk to me about it, but implement an idea you got from that conference, then you just wasted money. So this guy had gone to a conference, and typical, not much came out of him. So I went to see him, and I said, you went to a conference on decision support. Did you meet anybody there that knew what they were doing? And he said, well, I met this one guy from Houston, and I'll just use his first name, Suresh. And he seemed to know what he was talking about. So I said, have you got his name? Somehow we've got a hold of his name and his phone number. I called Suresh up and I said, Suresh, I hear you really know what you're talking about. And he was, he was an East Indian fella and he had the strong accent. And he said, yeah, I know what I'm doing. He told me that all these things. And I said, good, get your butt to Calgary on the weekend because we're going to kick off the project on Sunday. And he said to me, you trust me that much? And I said, listen, my life is simple. It's a binary. Either I trust you or I don't. So I'm trusting you. Get up here. If you fail, I'll fire you. That's all there is to it. So he shows up and we start talking about stuff. And he had a saying, and he'd always say, you can do that, but don't do it. and with his accent, it would just crack you up because I would say, Suresh, can we do this? You can do it, but don't do it. Which was a way of telling me, yeah, it's a good idea, but we're not doing it.
You know what? It brings back, I just laugh because the way he would do it, he would cross his legs. He was a thinner guy. What a great guy, though. You have to admit.
Oh, great guy.
Unbelievable
I have
guy.
nothing but respect for Suresh.
And then one time he was in the meeting and you were talking about something and it was another guy in there. I'm not going to say his name, but he's the architect and he's getting all excited. He goes, so I can do this plugin with this plugin? You can do it. And then he said, you can do this with Oracle divided by SAP? You can do it. And he's getting all excited. And he goes, but Andy, don't do it. And so that's a great thing. I use that all the time. And it's a Bruno/Sureshism is that, even my kids, God bless them, they go, Dad, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I go, what do you think? I can do it? You can do it, but don't do it. And right now I'm in a position, I guess, by default, because I'm getting older, they call different vintage. And some, young entrepreneurs come up to me, right? And they say, hey, I'm developing this app divided by this, divided by that. You think it's a good idea? Sure. You think I can do it? You can do it, but I'm not sure if I would do it that way, but okay. So here's another one. Are you ready?
Yep.
The saying that it gets different, not better.
Yeah.
And so that was in context. Okay. You and your lovely wife came to our house and the kids were running around and this and that. We built a trampoline, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And the next day you were always so nice and you'd always say, Bruno, we had a great time. I'm like, oh my God, Bruno, because your kids are a little older. You had gone through it. I said, Bruno, tell me it gets better. And you'd always say, let me shut the door for a second. Right? And then you would say, and you said that one. And that I've never, for 20 years now, that's what I live by. So why don't you explain that? It doesn't get better, it gets different.
Actually, there's two sayings when it comes to children. Yeah, as they get older, you think, oh, it's going to get better. No, it doesn't get better. It just gets different. The older they are, different problems, but still the same thing as when they were younger. The other saying that I've learned, and this is not one of mine, but I tell a lot of people this one. When you're raising children, remember, the days are long, but the years are short. And if you think about that, it's amazing. Like I have an 8-year-old granddaughter now, and wow. I look at her pictures when she was just a little baby, and I go, where have those 8 years gone? Yet, when we took a pretty active role in helping to raise her earlier in her life, and we spent a lot of long days with her. We'd take her places, and those days seem to be by the end, because you're getting older, you're getting exhausted. But now I look at it and I go, boy, oh boy, so true. The days were long, but the years sure are short. So bottom line is enjoy them while you've got them, because they grow up faster than you can blink an eye.
And the last one I want to cover, and then we're going to do something, I don't know, maybe fun. Well, we've done this. I'm going to try to guess your answers on this one, but this goes to all the entrepreneurs, the young business people, the old business people that are starting a business. I'm going to share the story. I feel I have to earn the business with you and your companies and stuff like that. That there was no doubt about that. I had to work hard, and you worked hard, and everything. Okay, it was no monkey business. But when I started my first staffing company, we knew each other, and you were a good guy about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
and you'd be excited. You'd be saying like, Bruno, what'd you do today? You know what I mean? And the one thing that always resonated, and I tell all the entrepreneurs that come and talk to me, right?
Mm.
And I remember calling you one time and I say, Bruno, what a great week. I met Johnny Rabbit, and I met freaking Carol Burnett, and I met this, and I went to this conference, I went to that conference. I'd go like 2 weeks networking, doing this, because that's what I thought you had to do for business, right?
Mm.
And do you remember you said, Bruno, let me ask you a question. Do you remember the question you asked me?
Oh yeah.
Let's tell our viewers.
Okay, so yeah, Bruno was telling me all about all these activities he was doing, and all I could think about was, Bruno, have you closed any deals? Because if you haven't closed the deal, you're wasting time. And yeah, I mean, another angle on that, and it comes back to my days as a project manager. And, I tell people this: get your first tube of toothpaste on the shelf. Because if you haven't got a product, if you can't close a deal, you're wasting your time. And I find too many people, like entrepreneurs, they got an idea, but they want to put out 67 brands of toothpaste. No, get your first tube out, put it on the shelf, try to get a first couple sales, then start worrying about the next one. And yeah, I remember, Bruno, I was actually frustrated because I was listening to you and I go, yeah, this is all wonderful, but when are we going to get a sale? When are you going to make a sale? Because of course my fear was maybe I'd have to feed the damn guy.
But Bruno, honestly, and for all our viewers out there, and they know how much I admire you, okay?
Yeah.
You had no dog in the race.
No.
It was just I was frustrating you with all this crazy BS enthusiasm about saying, look at all the girls that are talking to me. And you go, do you realize they're all nuns? They're not going to date you. They're not going to go out with you, right?
Exactly.
And so as crazy as it sounds, and I talk to so many people, including my kids or whatever, and I'm not right, I always have to preface it by saying, as one of my mentors once said to me, metaphorically kicking me in the how you doing, woke me up. And ever since then, you do have to do the networking and the fun stuff and this and that. And that's part of being your own boss.
Yeah.
But if you're not closing deals and if you're not making a massive difference for your client, over servicing them, getting overpaid, you may as well get on the 51 bus and drive it all day. You're going to meet a lot of nice people there too, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
there's one thing I want to touch on, and then we're going to get to my little time. Okay. So
Sure.
I've always remembered, I don't know if you want to share this story, but 9/11 was crazy. Right. And I know you remember exactly where you were. And we talk about leadership, project management. You're in a bit of a project management pickle. A lot of people were. Why don't you tell the story on how you tried to get back to Canada?
Yeah. I'll never forget that 9/11. I was in Provo, Utah. We were at that time doing business with a company called Novell.
Bruno, stop right there. Stop right there. For our viewers, there are only two reasons why an Italian like you and I would be in Utah. Dealing with Novell or witness protection. So you were dealing with Novell. Okay, so everybody knows it's really Bruno Picone, your name. Okay, go ahead.
So I woke up that morning and my boss, she just called me and she said, because we were due to fly back that night, she said, we're not going back to Calgary tonight. And I said, why? Did they have a snowstorm? Because, that was the only time I could remember where I wouldn't be able to fly back to Calgary. She says, no, turn on your TV. Turned on the TV, and that's when I saw the jet fly into one of the Twin Towers. And, of course, like everybody else, what's going on? So we were stuck in Provo, Utah, and, not exactly my idea of a fun place. So we said, well, we gotta get back home. And we decided we were going to rent a couple of cars and drive back. And, it was like, I don't know, a 2-day trip. First we were going to get to Great Falls and then make our way to Calgary. But as we were leaving Billings, Montana, and I was driving, going at a good clip. I think I was doing probably 65 miles an hour, and it was dark and everything else. I come around a curve, and a mother and the baby elk are walking in front of me. And the two passengers in the car scream, "Bruno!" And I thought to myself very quickly, I thought, yeah, I see them. That's not the problem. The problem is, what do I do next? And I tell people this, and I don't think they think I'm crazy, but all I could think about was when I played hockey and I had two defensemen in front of me, the only thing I could think of was go along the boards to try to get around them. I'm not going through them. I'm going around them. And at that very moment, that's what I thought. I'm going to try to go around these two elk. I'm not going to try to, I'm certainly not going to try to stop. I'm going to try. And we still ended up killing the mother, which, I felt so bad for. But at least, none of us died. And for that, I was so grateful. But yeah, then when we got into Great Falls, and one of the fellows who I have the most respect for, he's a Mormon, so he doesn't drink. And I turned to him and I said, "Buddy, I don't know about you, but I'm going in for a drink." My nerves are shot. He didn't join me, so I had his drink too.
You know what, Bruno? I don't like that story for those reasons, but I love hearing it because, it puts it in perspective. And I remember how, happy you were to save your passengers, your coworkers. And I lie. I want to ask you one more question, because a lot of people these days, younger, whatever, even our age, they go by the preface of saying, we taught them, unfortunately, the younger generation. I was just talking to my son about this, is that we say you can do anything. You can do anything, right? Especially now, you got YouTube University, you got Google, everything. You can do anything you want. And you hear it so many times that I think they aggregate all those anythings, and they think that you can do everything in life. And they don't become experts in anything sometimes, and the gig economy sometimes slows some of the, you got to be committed. If you want to share this story, because I say it all the time, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. And you made a really big decision. I can't remember what year it was, but it was early 2000s, not to move your family for a position that would have probably changed your life. And that was I've always lived by what you told me, is that you can't do everything. You can do something and you do it really right, but getting your priorities straight, because you had your priorities straight. That's why you never moved. And you can share that story if you want, but it was very motivating to me.
Yeah, I mean, it was, we had just come out of the SAP generation. We were all, SAP was fairly new, and they were offering, a lot of money to consultants to go and go consulting. And I had a chance to actually go to Houston, Texas to get onto a consulting role. And, I had young children, my kids were in high school at the time, and I thought to myself, yeah, I can go away, but what's more important, that I'm home to guide them, or I'm out there making big bucks? And I decided, hey, the best thing still is to stay home and help raise my kids, because I knew that the high school years were the most formative and the most important years of all in their lives. And so, yeah, that was it.
And there was also a time where you could have moved to South America and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I always made family my number one priority, and I have no regrets of that. And now looking back, close, although they never listened to me and always argue with me, I'm close to my sons. And for that purpose, I think, if I hadn't been in their lives, they would have thought, hey, who are you? It's the old Cat in the Cradle song, right?
Well, and the last one I'm going to say is more of a comment. And, we all, in my generation, we all bit into the, nothing wrong with these people, but, they were personalities, I think, equally, how about that? I'll be polite, to their content and process. But, people like Tony Robbins, and the Oprah Winfreys and the Dr. Phils and the Dr. Oz's and all that kind of stuff. And, the whole thing, quality is better than quantity, and quality time is better than quantity time. And I learned from you early on when my boys were running around, and you said, Bruno, you pick your poison. This quality over quantity, you never bought into it. No. Not just because you didn't buy into it, I blindly followed you, I started paying attention to how much time it really takes to, bring up the horses in the house, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, people say, oh, it's the quality of the time you spend with your children. No, I used to think, you just can't come home and say, okay, I'm going to give you an hour between 7 and 8, and it's going to be quality time. What the hell does that mean? But if you give them, lots and lots of time, you're going to find moments. And, looking back, driving the kids to hockey practice at 6:30 in the morning, that was, I couldn't really say that was like quality time, but it was during those times that I think I made the closest contact with my kids. Because you're driving along and you just say, how's school going? And at first, of course, you get the usual, hey, everything okay? And then you ask a little more, and next thing you know, you find out the truth. They're struggling here or that, and you're able to help them. And that you can't just, your kids are not like a dental appointment. Show up at 1:30, I'm going to clean your teeth and you're going to be out of here. No, you got to be with them all the time. And over that period of time, you will start to see, you will get quality time, but it's in the quantity. So I always thought, spend as much time as you can with the kids and make them your priority. And, you'll reap the benefits later.
I swear, this is the last one. And then we get to some other stuff. And I'm going to share, like I share this video, not shamelessly, whatever, because we're on our network and this is on a whole bunch of podcasts, but I truly want to share this with people individually because these are absolute lessons. We joke around. I remember the journey more than the lesson sometimes, which brings me back to the lesson. I kept for me, the best for last. And you said this, I don't know how many times, and maybe you don't even think it's a life lesson, a Bruno Picone-ism, right? For instance, you take care of your kids, you give up a career kind of thing to make sure your kids, because you're responsible for them. Maybe an in-law, maybe your parents, could be a neighbor, and you spend all this time. But let's choose kids. And I remember you telling me a long time ago. He said, Bruno, you know what? You make a decision. You started your company so you can be closer to your family, blah, 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 blah. You're responsible and you're doing the right thing. And I'm like, yeah, Bruno, I think I'm doing the right thing, this, that, and the other thing. And I'm feeling good about myself. And then the Bruno Picone-ism comes over and goes, Bruno, there's no trophy at the end. You know that, right? Like you do it because that's who you are. That's who you're telling yourself who you want to be remembered by. So I want you to touch on that because I kept this one for last, and that's why I'm distributing this video. This is the answer, is there's no trophy at the end.
No, I mean, I remember even at work, sometimes people say, do you want to leave your, what legacy are you going to leave? And I used to think to myself, at work, legacy? I came, I worked, I went, it was over. And, but when you think of your family, or someone obviously people who you love, is the only thing you can really get from them is their love. And one time, I'll never forget this story. An individual that I had an utmost respect for, who worked in HR, and I'll tell you, I'm not a big HR fan, so for me to have respect for anybody in HR is a miracle. And I guess there was two people that I had.
Bruno, that's HR calling you right now.
You know what? I think it is. No, I'm unemployed, so I don't have to worry about HR. But there was really just two people in all, well, maybe three, I guess, HR people that I had a lot of respect for. And one of them, one day we were talking, and we were talking about interview questions. And he said, when you interview somebody, don't ask stupid questions like, what kind of a fruit do you want to be or whatever. And he said, you got to be very careful what you ask your interview, when you ask her in an interview. And he said one time, one of the guys asked him about his dad, and he got really upset because I forget what the question was about his dad, but he said that, oh, yeah, I know what the question was. What would you say to your dad if you saw him today? Oof. And the guy, his father had passed away, and he said, I said to him, I miss you. And the interviewer said, "That's it?" And he was really upset because he said when his father was dying and laying in bed dying, his thing was what he said to his dad, "I'm going to miss you." And I think about that a lot. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the only real reward, is that somebody can turn and say, "I'm going to miss you." That means that you made an impact in their life. If, I've had bosses, for instance, I always think if I could go to their funeral, I'd be towing a 2-ton rock with me. Because you did nothing. I'm never going to miss that guy. But the people you run into that mean something. Yeah, I'm going to miss you means a lot.
Bruno, this is awesome. We can talk for hours and hours. We usually do.
Oh, yeah.
I want to get to the section called rapid fire, so people get to know you. I think I know some of these answers. Are you ready? Okay, take a deep breath. Okay, there's only one category that if you don't answer the right way, I'm going to challenge you. There's only one question. It's not the Blue Jays question, by the way. But okay, favorite food?
Oh, got to be linguine alla vongole.
If you would have said sushi, Bruno, I would have checked your ID, okay? Favorite restaurant, doesn't have to be here.
Used to be a restaurant here in Calgary called Abruzzo.
Yeah, on 4 and 10, whatever.
Yeah, what a restaurant.
Yeah, they closed it down. I was across the street from there the other day. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Favorite movie?
My favorite movie. That's a tough one. There's so many good ones. I always think of Apollo 13 for some reason. It just was something for me.
Bruno, how many times have we talked about Moonstruck?
Oh, Moonstruck, yeah. That's Francis's favorite movie. That's why.
That's one of the greatest movies of all time. Guarda la luna, que bella luna.
My favorite line in there is when everybody's sitting around the table. I use this all the time. Everybody's sitting around the table, nobody's saying much, and say, "Somebody tell a joke."
The old man. One of my favorite lines, it was not even a line, is when the girl, when Cher comes in, and I guess she says she's not going to marry Johnny, she loves Ronnie, and this and that and the other. Best line in the movie wasn't even a line, with the grandfather goes like this in the background. and then he tells Cosmo, sorry, we regress. Hey, you guys want to know about our conversation? This is how it comes up. So, and then he tells Cosmo, "A new bed for your daughter's wedding."
Yeah.
Right? Real copper. Okay, so favorite movie, Apollo 13. I give you a free spin on that. Okay.
Yeah, no, I think the only reason that I drew a blank was because I had my mind on project management stuff. I'm sure if we were just BSing, I would have said Moonstruck, because it is I've probably watched it 30 times. It's
so silly. It's so good. It resonates from that genre that we grew up, right?
Oh, yeah.
As my father say, attore favorito. Who's your favorite actor?
Oh, it's got to be Robert De Niro. I love him.
Okay, favorite band?
Favorite band? I would have to say, like, I'm more into, the folk. I love Arnold Guthrie. So I don't know. He didn't really have a band, but Arnold Guthrie, I often think of Alice's Restaurant, like it's just such a funny song, and it just brings so much laughter and happiness to me.
Favorite song? Is that your favorite song?
Yeah, Alice's Restaurant.
Okay. Favorite radio station?
CKUA 93.7 on the dial.
The only reason why I laugh is that one of the first times I met you, right? It was on the phone, and I heard, "Welcome to CKUA. This is Baba's Hour." And I'm like, "Sorry, Bruno, what are you listening to? CKUA? Why is it too loud?" I listen to CKUA. I know these guys, so I knew that was coming. But okay, favorite city you've traveled to that up to now? Favorite city?
Venice. Love Venice.
Did you park your boat there, your yacht? Because everybody knows you got a couple of yachts.
I wish, no. But the reason I love Venice is you can wander through that city and you'll get lost because the streets are narrow, the directions are terrible. but you'll turn a corner and all of a sudden you'll see something and you go, my God, I can't believe this exists. And yeah, it's just an amazing place.
Place where you would like to visit, but you haven't been to yet.
Lisbon.
Oh, I thought you were there.
No, I haven't been to Portugal yet. That's on the list.
Okay. Okay. So somebody who's still alive that you would like to meet and give a cazzotto, no, that you would like to talk to, meet.
You know, I would really love to talk to Pope Francis. You know, just to me, you know, just his view on life and you know, his spiritual aspects. I just think it would be uplifting. That's all.
One question you would ask him.
How do you know? How do you know?
Good question.
You know, I mean, that's the question we all struggle with. How do you know? I mean, I think we all have, all of us who believe know, but how does he know? You know, like, was it a life event? You know, and if you're having a really honest discussion, I think his answer would just be so deep and rewarding.
That's a great question. Somebody who passed away that you would love to talk to, and what would you ask them?
Who would somebody who's passed away? You know, probably Winston Churchill. And the reason I'd like to talk to Winston Churchill is, you know, the guy was a bit of, I wouldn't say, he was a bit of a loser when he was, you know, working his way up. He had a lot of failures, but, you know, like the fact that he was able to make the decisions he did at such a difficult time, you know, like he basically went against everybody else in the government and said, hey, we have to stand up to this evil force. And yeah, and you know, the question would be, where did you get how did you know you were doing the right thing? Like, where did you get that fortitude?
That's great. Bruno, favorite sport?
You know, I would have to say it's hockey, but not, you know, this is an old, like, you know, if you ask my wife why she married me, because she's, you know, 30 years ago, I looked good, not today. And hockey's like that. 30 years ago, hockey was great. Today, I think it's lost a lot. And so now I would have to say it's baseball. And I think that baseball is an amazing, amazing sport because in all the years, they haven't changed the field much. Yeah, I know now they made the bases a little bigger and so forth. I don't know why. But, you know, the time it takes for a catcher to throw the guy out at second is still as tough now as it was then. You know, it's a game that doesn't really change in time. And, you know, people say, oh, but it's slow. I go, that's because you don't really watch it. You know, during the game, so much is really going on. You just have to pay a lot of attention. And I've used baseball a lot, even to solve hard problems. And I'll give you a great example is, you know, when I was working, one of the difficult things you always have is everybody wants to move up. Everybody wants to get promoted. And I used to say, you know what? In baseball, there's single A, double A, triple A, and the majors. And you don't just go from single A to triple A or triple A to the majors. And I used to say, I only have a spot for 9 players. And the guys that are playing in triple A, they're waiting their turn. But I can't just bring everybody from triple A up to the majors because then we won't have room. And so I used to say to people, I know you think you're a major league player, but right now you're in AAA, and that's just the way it is. And if you don't like it, then you got to leave because I can't promote you. I've got the spot filled. And,
so, Bruno,
and in baseball, that helped me.
So favorite team?
Well, goes without saying, it has to be the Blue Jays. I live and breathe the Blue Jays every year. I go there. Hey, have I got time to tell a great story?
Bruno, it's Bruno and B. I think they'd be disappointed if you didn't.
So I went in June. I went to every year. My oldest son Stefano buys me the best tickets he can afford.
By the way, that was in May, but I'm not going to correct you.
Okay, yeah, it was in May. We went to the Blue Jays, and it was Bo Bichette giveaway day, and I got there thinking if I got there, it was a 7:30 start. I thought if I get there at 5-ish. More than enough time to get my Bo Bichette jersey and bandana. I get there at 5 o'clock. lineups around the block. I get in, they're all gone, nothing. So I'm sitting there, I'm watching the game, and this guy comes and sits in front of me, and he asks me where I'm from. We start the BS and everything else, and he finally turns to me about the third inning. He said, "Did you get the Bo Bichette giveaway?" I said, "No, I got here too late. I guess that's just the way life is." Anyways, we were talking back and forth. At the start of the ninth inning, just as the Blue Jays were rallying, he reaches into his knapsack and he says, "Here, young fella, you can have mine." And he gave me his Bo Bichette giveaway. Anyways, to make the story a little more interesting, I knew he was from Guelph. I just knew his first name. I wrote to the Guelph newspaper and I wrote an article. I wrote to the editor and I said, "An act of kindness." And I described what this fellow Josh did for me. And do you know that he emailed me and he said, "I guess you found me." And wow. The Guelph newspaper did a special on him. They called it an act of kindness by, I forget what they call people from Guelph. But anyways, and so there was a picture of him and I at the ball game with him giving me the Bo Bichette giveaway jersey. And,
that's unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And only in baseball would you see that.
Bruno, you know what? I'm going to throw a little Italianism in here, but what in the world how would our parents pronounce Bo Bichette? And that would be a massacre. That would be a massacre, right? Good player.
Oh.
And for the record, I've said this several times, I'm not a Blue Jay hater. I'm just a big fan for the Yankees. That's one day we'll talk about that. But I actually had an opportunity to play on the Sky Dome when it first opened. I was a young young player, and it was great. Okay. Favorite athlete, I guess, of all time?
Oh, this will knock your socks off. Jacques Laperriere.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Jean Beliveau.
No, Jacques Laperriere, number 2, the Montreal Canadiens. I loved him. I don't know why. He had a slap shot that never hit the net, but
he used to block all those shots. Remember, he used to block the shots and slide down. Bruno, this is the opportunity for you to ask me not a very tough question, but they're all tough. I mean, so.
Nothing comes to mind. But as we close today, I want to show you something that I now have that is so valuable and precious. And I actually built a little shrine for it. I don't know if you can see this.
Oh, timely.
Anyways, what's in here is this little rock. And that comes from Juno Beach.
Beautiful.
And we had the fortune, my wife and I, we went to Juno Beach. And, the beach is impressive from the point of view of thinking of what happened there. But if you then go to Ben-sur-Mer, where the Canadian cemetery is, and you see those rows and rows and rows of tombstones, and you read the inscription, and most of those young men were 19, 20 years old. And, my sons are a lot older now, but I mean, Bruno, your kids are just a bit older than those guys who went over there. And I thought, I took a picture and I sent it to my son, and he said, "It's hard to imagine that there was such cruelty in the world that this is a reality, that all these tombstones." And I think, how many future lives were lost because those young men died. And it just hit me so hard to see all those tombstones.
Bruno, that's even better than a question. So that's you got me off the hook, and I wouldn't expect any less of you. And Bruno, I'm so happy we went a little bit longer than our normal episodes. 10 out of 10, who gives a shit, right? Yep. But I do want to tell you from the bottom of my heart, thank you for all the mentorship, all the fun stories, everything. And we need to go to our favorite deli in Calgary and wait till the rooster comes up. And and God bless you, and thank you very much, Bruno.
No, thank you, Bruno, and I appreciate your friendship. It means a lot to me.
Okay, we'll see everybody next time.
All right, ciao. Thank you, Bruno.